Questions to always ask. There are certain questions you want to ask in every deposition. For example, have you been convicted of a crime? You want to know whether that person has a criminal record. It may impact on their believability, their truthfulness. If they said, yes, I was convicted of fraud, then an expert may not have the same credibility. Has your license been suspended? Has your license been revoked? Have you been subject to any disciplinary action? Has somebody ever filed a complaint against you? How many complaints were filed? When were they filed? Where could I find those complaints? How many of them resulted in disciplinary action? What was the nature of the complaints? All the disciplinary action. Which disciplinary action occurred? What are the different ranges of disciplinary action? What did they specifically impose? Where was it written? Where was the document, that contains that disciplinary action? Who was the body that issued that? What penalties, what results, what sanctions were imposed? How many times were you sanctioned? Maybe they got sanctioned in one state, but not in the state where they're licensed. Maybe they got sanctioned in one state where they were licensed, but it's not where they are today. I want to make sure I go through and find out what are the types of things that impact their credibility. Okay? If they work in a company, I might want to ask, has there ever been a complaint against the company? Has the company ever been disciplined, ever been sanctioned? If you know of other experts in there that were sanctioned, are you aware of any experts that work in Jones Expert Company that were sanctioned, disciplined, complaints were filed? It's very important. It might impact the way they testify. It might impact bias. It might be able to be shown later at a trial. There's all kinds of reasons why. But I want to find out what kinds of, quote, disciplinary, criminal, other types of things that have happened to them. This is the deposition. I can ask questions which are relevant or which will lead to relevant admissible evidence. So this information may bring you to additional types of information that might be useful or admissible. I also want to ask the person if they were under any medication. Are they taking any medication now that would affect their ability to render an opinion? Are they, somehow impaired in a way that they need a certain thing in order to perform? Whatever it is, I want to know that. Because I want to know, maybe they say they wear glasses and they didn't wear glasses on the day that the accident occurred. You're not sure, but you want to go through and find out all the things that could impact their credibility. I want to ask the witness if there's anything that they left at home that they feel like they should have brought. I want to ask the witness questions which may impact on how much more I have to ask, or whether I need to take another depo, or whether I need to explore a particular area of bias or credibility. I may want to ask about lawsuits. Have you ever been sued? Have you ever sued anybody? Who have you sued? What suits involved this expertise? What suits involved not being paid? What was the counterclaim? Did they say because you performed negligent work? Why didn't they pay you? What was the claim? What did they say? What did you say? What we're doing is we're gathering information so that we understand that character, that credibility of that person. These are neat areas of questions that you should ask in every single deposition. You want to ask the witness what they did to prepare for the deposition. Now, sometimes you'll cover this in the way in which you ask those questions. But I want to make sure that we mention it again here. It's important that you go step by step into everything they did to prepare for this depo. What is every single kind of communication that occurred? What is every single document they received? What is every kind of analysis they performed? Let's talk about each. What is every kind of communication they received? You want to take them through and find out, were you emailing somebody? Were you talking to them on the phone? Were they sending you information? What was all the things that you got in order to render the opinion? How did you start? Take them DNA to the present. What was your first call? How was that first call? And how did that help you to prepare for the deposition? And what information did you gather? What questions did you ask? And if they later on say they ask additional questions, you can say, why didn't you ask those questions at the first time you spoke to them? To show that maybe they were lazy, they're dumb, they're not thorough, they're not organized, whatever the case may be. But I want to learn what they looked at. What are those communications that they looked at? And who did they speak to? What was said to them? What did they say to them? What interactions did they have? Live, in person, on the phone, via email? Because you're gathering information to understand, what did you do? I don't care what you did, I want to know. What depositions did you read? What reports? What opinions did you read? Okay? Go through each one. How did they impact your opinions in this case? Or why did you read those? Did you think it was relevant? Did you use that in rendering your opinion? Yes or no? How did you use that in rendering your opinion? Or maybe you wait till later and ask that. But the concept is that I want to find out what is everything they did to prepare. Is this the same type of preparation that you usually do? In other words, does the person always just get a phone call and say, we want you to go out and inspect the site, and that's what they do every time? And they don't really get data, they just show up, and so they have nothing? Or do you want them to tell you that they always gather information, but in this case, they didn't gather that information? I want to go through and find out what their protocol is. If they say they do it differently every time, listen, you're going to have a field day at trial with that. Okay? Because the reality is, you have to have a process. If sometimes you gather facts and sometimes you don't, then you're not organized. If sometimes you use these tests and sometimes you don't, on the same basic assumptive facts, then you're an idiot. If sometimes you talk to people and sometimes you don't, then you're not being thorough. I mean, we could go through and do any of these analyses, the concept being that we're trying to find out every single thing they did to prepare for the deposition. Okay? They might have gone out to the place and inspected. They might not have. Whatever they did or didn't do, I want to know why. I noticed that you said you did not go out to the premises. Why didn't you? Or, why didn't you go out to the premises? Or, why did you go to the premises? You said you've rendered 55 opinions, or maybe you don't know what their opinions are. In how many occasions did you go out to the premises in a building construction defect case where you were asked to look at the curtain window system? How many times did you not go out to perform an inspection when you had a building construction defect case and you were asked to opine about the curtain window systems? Okay? It doesn't matter what they say. You're going to find out. Every time I did it this way, sometimes I did it that way. So why'd you do it? Why did sometimes you go out and do it? Well, sometimes it's not available. Listen, whatever they say might be helpful. So what they're telling you is that the space wasn't available, but they would have liked to have gone out there. Well, that's big when you're asking for their opinion. So you're telling me that your preference is to go out there. So why didn't you make time to go out there? Who stopped you from going out there? Give me the names of each person who stopped. Tell me each person you asked to go out there. Tell me each communication you wrote that said you needed to go out there because it was important for your opinion. Tell me each response you got and what they specifically said. You see how we're just taking part? No matter what they say, they're dead. That's the way to do this. We're gathering information. We're finding out what they did to prepare for the deposition. Did you review any scientific materials? If they're rendering an expert opinion, chances are they relied on some science. What books did you review? I didn't review any books. What scientific information did you review? I didn't review any scientific information. Okay, well, they obviously either one, think they have it memorized, in which case you'll probably impeach them on something, or two, they didn't think it was necessary and they're going to have to offer you an excuse that probably will be difficult for them to satisfy in a court of law. Because if somebody's rendering a scientific conclusion, it has to be based on science, and that science has to come from somewhere. In other words, they learned it out of a textbook. Some professor taught them. Some formula was made up that helped them to do that. It's not just, well, I looked at it and I can divinely know what the science is. Now, sometimes people can get away with not using that, but fundamentally, if they're making a conclusion, it has to be based on something that's recognizable. Something that will satisfy a court that they're entitled to testify as an expert. So you want to get into what are those things they did? What science did they look at? Because later on you may ask them, well, why didn't you look at it? Or why did you use this science in this case and not in other cases? Well, I looked at the ASCE standards for engineers. Okay. Do you do that in every case? Absolutely. I look at the applicable ASCE standards in the case depending on what kind of topic I'm looking at. Well, in this particular case, what ASCE standards did you look at? Standard 7-01, Standard 7-05. Okay. What other ones? That was it. Okay, why did you only look at those two? Is it your expert opinion that no other provisions of the ASCE could possibly be relevant? Yes? Okay, you boxed them in. No? Okay, which ones could be relevant? You get what we're doing here. We're gathering that information. We're finding out what did they do. Everything that someone did, I want to know. Everything they couldn't do, I want to know why they didn't do it. Everything they could have done, I want to know why they didn't do it. Everything that they wanted to do but didn't do, I want to know why. For everything they did do, I want to know why they're doing that and whether there's a process or a procedure or a scientific reliable test or a methodology that's accepted that promoted them to use that. I'm trying to find out everything they did to prepare for their depo, and I'm setting it up in a way that will help me to establish some later questioning that has to do with the foundation behind what they do. It also may tie in with the questions in the additional work environment. Maybe they didn't inspect the premises and now they're going back out. But they just got done telling you that in 100 cases out of 100, they inspect the premises and this is the one they didn't do it. They kind of look lazy, disorganized, they don't care. Whatever you're going to spin that to be, it may have a profound impact on the way in which you approach the trial of the case or the settlement or the negotiations or other depositions. So keep that in mind, that when you are asking questions, one of the fundamental areas or categories you need to go into is what did that person do to prepare? What is everything they did? And do not be afraid. Be courageous. Take your time. I know it will take time, but you have to go through those. Otherwise, you might miss something. And your job is to collect all the information so you can assess and make the best possible decisions regarding that case, to fully understand the opinions, to fully be able to use those opinions in a way that will help your case in the future, or to be able to attack those opinions, or to be able to confirm those opinions. Whatever the case may be, this kind of learning about what the person did to prepare is a quintessential component of any successful deposition.